Last night at small group, we had an interesting interesting conversation where we talked about what the church looks like within the church and what it looks like outside of it. We had already talked about what the church looks like inside, and so we focus more on what it looks like outside this time. And one of the things that came up was, even if you don't agree with somebody's, political views or ideology on something, you can still treat them like a human being and respect them as a person who has every right to come to their own conclusions about things. And none of us are 100% right on everything, so the more grace we have for each other, the easier it is for us to come to understandings about things. And through that discussion, some statements were made that made it a little more obvious where some people stood on some issues, and none of them really surprised me, honestly. But conversations like that always are a signal to me as to which people are safe to talk to about my personal life experiences and beliefs along certain lines. And as a Christian who left the evangelical church and has returned to just the outskirts of it and is still highly critical of a lot of the corrupted and misleading things about the evangelical church, I find it concerning when it's not possible for us to have safe conversations based on who we are as people and feel as though nothing will change between us based on different views on scripture. And there are some misogynistic, some sexist, some bigoted things that people in a lot of the evangelical church still believe that I no longer validate as a loving response to someone's lifestyle or beliefs. And because of that, I am a lot more careful about what I say on those topics, because I know that it can be very polarizing to have a view of all humanity that is pretty much a level playing field, as opposed to claiming that you have that and then making exceptions based on sexuality, for example. And that is really where things get complicated, because I recognize that you can read certain passages of scripture in different ways depending on who you are and what your background is and what your understanding of the rest of Jesus' teaching is. So that gets a little tricky, and I try not to say anything, but if you've watched very many of these videos, you can probably guess where I stand on certain issues regarding sexuality. And at some point soon, I will probably chat about that, but not this specifically, but along this same topical line, I have some thoughts about that I think are worth considering, just in the context of being a young person in America who claims to follow Jesus. So we'll leave it there until probably tomorrow, and we shall see.